right, we're back. Back by popular demand. We are doing this. We're doing a let's... Well, I almost said let's argue, because, I mean, that's where I stole this from. Let's debate. Let's discuss. Let's have a little bit of a chat. Let's see here. Which one am I going to start with? Too many progressive rock bands focus on the progressive and forget to rock. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the progressive rock banner has been applied to a lot of bands that aren't even rock bands, and the rock genre itself is petered out. Like, when was the last time a rock album charted? So, yeah, I think it's just within the musical zeitgeist at the time, or right now, at least. That's why I like to use different labels and different genre items to categorize. Like, we've got the retro prog, we've got the contemporary prog, modern prog, and this kind of separates itself from the rock aspect. But I do understand what you're saying in that, like, for a genre that focuses in on rock, there's not a whole lot of rocking going on, and especially nowadays. Tool is important as a nudge band, but is otherwise not hugely special. Still great, of course. So I actually had to ask this individual what a nudge band was, and apparently it's an entry point. It's some way to get into a particular genre and then go from there. And I see what you're saying in that it's a very popular, very well-known band, but I feel like Tool is almost like the peak. They're what kind of started it all in a lot of these post-metal outfits coming out in the early and late 90s, taking metal into a whole new direction that then inspired so many other bands. So, like, it would be almost equating, say, like Pink Floyd is an entry point into progressive rock. And in some ways they are, and you're very right in that sense, but I wouldn't want to discredit them in that they are just that. And you do mention that they are still great, and I will agree that yes, in fact, they are very, very great. You can quote me on that. I feel like you're giving Tool a little bit of a disservice, just how much they've pushed the genre forward. And I mean, no other band that I can really think of has been able to capture what they've been doing to such the extent that they would be a better Tool. Like, I mean, there was a reason why Tool and King Crimson toured together, because there really wasn't any other band that could. I think Heir Apparent is the last masterpiece song from Opeth, but I should probably listen to their prog rock albums more. Yeah, you kind of do, because almost every track off of Pale Communion is a masterpiece. Yeah, I mean, Heir Apparent is still a fantastic treat, but I think you're also missing the other masterpieces that were found on Watershed, like Burden, and especially Hessian Peel. Like, Hessian Peel is probably the masterpiece off of that album, just where it goes and how heartfelt and how brilliant and beautiful it is at the beginning, and then the second half is just guttural and relentless and brutal. Music genres that are solely centered around lyrical themes, example emo, porno grind, shouldn't even be considered genres. No, I think they should. And especially, like, when you were talking about emo grind and porno grind, or emo and porno, they still have a musical feel to them. Like, when you're listening to an emo band, if you were to just take out the lyrics, you can still kind of hear the emo genre found within that. Would you say the same about, like, Christian rock? Would you not discredit Christian rock for their genre? I think the music is a part of the message behind it. So, I have to actually disagree with that one. Murder of the Universe is King Gizzard's best album. Nope. Next. Okay, I guess I should actually talk about this a little bit more. No, the Murder of the Universe is fine. It's a retread of Nonagon Infinity. I mean, they even sample Nonagon Infinity within it quite heavily. I like the actual structure and the concept of the album and the narrative style of it and where the story goes, but in terms of their best album, yeah, no. Unpopular opinion, Led Zeppelin's first two albums have been hugely influential 50 years ago, but have very little to offer in the 21st century listener. It's mostly just annoying, predictable, repetitive, and not all that original blues rock. Plus, the lyrics are mostly garbage. Yeah, I can see where you're coming within that. I mean, at the same time, I still get a lot of enjoyment out of those first 2 records, and I'm a part of the listening landscape of the 21st century. Granted, I was listening to them from a very early age, but I think people even from today can look back and listen to, Dazed and Confused. Honestly, how can you not love Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You? Like that heavy hitting, that bluesy, that it's so driven, it's so hard hitting. I still get shivers when I listen to that one. And Communication Breakdown, that is a tasty treat. Like even on the second album, which I feel is a little bit weaker than the first album, it still has like Whole Lot of Love, and Thank You is so heart-wrenching and so intimate and so passionate. Ramble On and Moby Dick are just fantastic treats. And this is where we're getting into like their nerdier side with Ramble On. And come on, how can you discredit Heartbreaker and Living Loving Maid? Like those 2 tracks blending completely together with one another. Yeah, I can't. Unfortunately, I don't know if your take really holds water in that sense, but I can at least understand what you're saying. Like I know that they go on to do better things after that, but yeah, the first album still holds a really special place in my heart. Hogarth era Marillion music has a lot more genuine emotion than Fish era does, at least to my ears. No, I agree. I full-heartedly agree. Hogarth captures more of the human emotion than Fish era does. Like I think Fish era was much more of an analytical examination of the human nature and being a lot more melodramatic, a lot more emotive about it. But in terms of like actually capturing the human emotions and the human equation, I think Hogarth is a little bit better at being that type of a poet. Bands that reject the progressive label, King Crimson, Vandergraaf Generator, Gentle Giant, were in fact the most progressive bands of their perspective era. I mean, I'd even add Steven Wilson to that mix, because Steven Wilson has even said on numerous accounts that he rejects the idea of being a progressive rock artist. I mean, it does come with the territory, because a lot of these bands were very pompous, very pretentious, very, hoity-toity. So of course they're going to be like, well, no, we're our own style. How dare you slap on a label to us? The audacity of it all. But yeah, that's essentially what progressive rock was. So sometimes you got to own your colors. It's a little bit better to actually own up to that instead of living in this cognitive dissonance. So Frank Zappa's music is great, but his discography as a whole is repetitive, particularly since his death. Do we really need a 30th version of King Kong? We're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel with Zappa's music vault. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially after his death, like he can't compose anything else. So of course it's going to be repetitive because we don't have anything else to go for. I think some of the aspects of this take do a little bit of a disservice about the verbosity. Is that even a word? The verbosity? Like the overall vastness of Frank Zappa's playing style, because just the jazzy, avant-garde, out of nowhere left field style of guitar work that the man is able to produce. Like obviously, like anything else, there's a style to it, there's a formula to it, and unlike other formulas, this one, there's a lot of interplay and there's a lot of intermixing that you can do within it, but it's still a formula, right? And it's still a style. I mean, Frank Zappa's musical discography is super vast, so of course you're going to start to run into repetitiveness of things that are kind of sounding very, very similar to one another. There's a lot more that you can do with his stuff before you run into that repetitive atmosphere of it. But yeah, I do start to believe that we are getting to an end point. Like we are starting to scratch the bottom of the barrel, because the guy died over 30 years ago. Holy geez, I'm getting old. Some individuals gave me more than one, so it's hard to talk about all of them. So I'm going to rapid fire a couple of these. Side 1 of Trespass is better than side 2. Yeah, I agree. Visions of Angels, Looking for Someone, and that song about the wolf. Those 3 tracks off of side 1, brilliant. Mwah. Gates of Beryllium is better than Close to the Edge. No. Animals is the best Floyd by far. Obviously, you didn't watch my worst to best. It's obviously Adam Hartmother. Tommy Kravik has one of the most beautiful voices in metal. I haven't heard it, so I don't know. If Tool's new album is great, they will have the most consistent discography in the genre. Hex yeah, they will. Seamus from Metal gets far too much hate for being simple country-esque acoustic piece. Not that bad. I didn't realize that Seamus got hate. I really like that track. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. The Wall is overrated. Yes, it is. King of Limbs is actually an all-right album. It is what it is. It's not great. Yeah. David Gilmour's last 2 solo albums are masterpieces. Yeah, they are. Holy jeez. I've returned to Rattle That Lock a couple weeks ago, and damn, it really holds up. And On an Island? Yeah, to think about like what Pink Floyd would have done in this century with those 2 albums under their belt, like damn. System of a Down Steal This album is underrated and deserves more love from the fan base. Yeah, it's got some tasty things on there. I think the thing is that they didn't have any like really big bangers, right? Like it didn't have BYOB, it didn't have Chop Suey, it didn't have any of those like really hard-hitting radio-friendly ones, but I don't think that was the point. I think this was definitely like a rage album of the music industry in the early 2000s. So yeah, I can see that it's underrated for sure. Okay, I've got one more. We'll end with this one because this was right after my Gentle Giant's worst to best, so a little bit of a plug there. Finally, Gentle Giant's music is awesome enough, but their album art is terrible. Seriously, it's one of the few times where an art was enough to put me off listening to them altogether for the longest time. Yeah, I mean, their first album and second album had a very distinct feel to it, like they were very unified. And depending on where you are, the third album, Three Friends, you either had a retread of the first album with just like Three Friends written in the forehead of the giant there, or you had this like really strange Pascal? I think that's how you pronounce it. I mean, if you look at Octopus is brilliant. Both the UK and the North American release. I like the UK a little bit better. That Roger Dean artwork is just brilliant. I can see a lot of people saying that their artwork is blah, but I think that it captures what style was being on the album. You know, it's really hard, and I do love talking about our album artworks because that's what it is. It's an art. I think Gentle Giant has a few really good album artworks. I mean, In a Glass House, Freehand, Missing Piece, Interview, those ones are they probably could have done something a little bit better, but Power and the Glory was very eye-catching, very pop, and very like in your face. And as I said, Octopus is just gorgeous. Like I almost want to buy that print and have it on wall like as an actual piece of art. So yeah, and I think I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you so much for everybody who contributed to this Let's Discuss segment. I don't know if I'm going to be doing one in the future. This was just kind of a one-off because I just needed something to give me a little bit of a breather before I dove into some more album reviews. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this one. This was a lot of fun, and you guys, as always, are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.